the Armchair Cricket Podcast News Roundup.
Hello all, welcome to another episode of Armchair Cricket Podcast, a podcast focusing on Test cricket by armchair critics of the game. In today's digest episode, let's take a quick look at all the international cricket that has happened, some of the CPL related games, as well as the news from around the cricketing world. First, let's take a quick look at the two ODIs that have recently finished between England and Australia. These were very, let's say, interesting ODIs. The first of these ODIs was played in Manchester, and in this game, Australia made 294 for 9, but they were able to keep England down to 275 for 9. So, when they batted first, Australia started off slowly. Even though they had some good contributions from Marcus Stoinis, who made 43, and Marnus Labuschagne, they were not able to really set up a big platform. And at 5 for 123, it looked like they were in fear of probably blowing away their start. But Mitch Marsh played a very responsible 73 of 100 balls, and he was well supported by Glenn Maxwell, who scored 77 of 59 balls. And after these two, Mitch Starc finished off strongly and made sure that Australia finished with a total of 294 for 9. This seemed to be slightly below par on this pitch, and given the way England have approached the game. But the Australian bowling attack, I think they felt very confident. When it came to bowling, Archer took 3 wickets for 57 and Markwood took 3 for 54, and earlier they had made a lot of, let's say, inroads into the Aussie top order. Adil Rashid finished with 2 for 55 and Moeen Ali finished with no wicket for 59. When it came their turn to chase, England stumbled too, as they quickly slipped to 2 for 13 and then 3 for 55. Only Johnny Bairstow stood strong, and he was supported well by Sam Billings, but they could not really pick up the run rate in the initial part of the chase. So by the time Johnny Bairstow was dismissed at 5 for 170, England was still, very well behind the game. In stepped Sam Billings, who scored his first international 100 for England. He made 118 out of 110 balls and was dismissed off the last ball of the innings. He did not get a lot of support from the tail, but he made sure England competed in this game, and England finished with 275 for 9. When it came to their bowling, Josh Hazlewood had a very big impact. He was bowling almost as if it was a test game, and he finished with 3 for 26 of 10 overs. Pat Cummins was a bit costly, and Mitch Starc finished no wicket for 47. But Adam Zampa was the guy who really, held England back with a very impressive 4 for 55 of his 10 overs, and he was well supported by Mitch Marsh, who took 1 for 29 of his 5 overs. Having taken a 1-0 lead, the Australian team must have felt really confident, because the way they started the second ODI, again held at Manchester, it was held on the 13th of September, the second game. In this game, they kept England down to a very slow start, because Johnny Bairstow was out with a score on 20 and Jason Roy with a score on 29. But by the time Joe Root was dismissed, it was already the 23rd over, and England had only made 90. This is very uncustomary for this new-gen England team, which believes in scoring fast and playing attacking cricket all the time. Eoin Morgan and Joe Root had sort of built a platform, but they were both dismissed, Joe Root making 39 and Eoin Morgan 42. And then nobody was really able to pitch in with much of a score. Chris Wokes sort of held the Australian bowlers at bay with 26. But then Tom Curran and Adil Rashid, who scored a pair of 30s, finished off strongly. And sort of they finished with an under par 231 for 9 at the end of their 50 overs. So once again, Zampa took 3 for 36 of his 10 overs, and Josh Hazlewood finished with 1 for 27 of his 10 overs. But, in this case, Mitchell Starc finished with 2 for 38, Pat Cummins took 1 for 56, and Mitch Marsh took 1 for 49. This looked like an easy chase as far as Australia was concerned, but looks like they were using the same pitch from the first ODI, so there was already a bit of wear and tear on this pitch. Australia started cautiously. They lost Dave Warner for 6 and Stoinis for 9, but Marnus Labuschagne and skipper Aaron Finch built a platform at better than the asking rate. So they had reached 3 for 144 in the 31st over when suddenly calamity struck. Labuschagne and Finch were dismissed in quick succession by Wokes, and then Mitch Marsh was dismissed for 1 by Archer, and then Glenn Maxwell was dismissed for 1 by Wokes. So suddenly again panic set in, very much like the first T20I on this tour. There was a bit of a panic, and Australia collapsed from 3 for 144 to 8 for 166. And from then on, Alex Carey tried to do his best, but that was not going to be enough. He finished as the last man out for 36, but with not a lot of support from the tail, Australia were all out for 207 with just 8 balls to spare. So England made a tremendous comeback thanks to 3 for 35 from Sam Curran, who was playing in this game ahead of Moeen Ali. 1 for 67 from Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid had a bit of a tough game here with the ball, but he showed his all-round qualities for England, and he took the last wicket, that of Carey. But the pick of the bowlers were Chris Vokes, who finished with 3 for 32 off his 10 overs, and man of the match, Jofra Archer, who took 3 for 34 off his 10. So it looks like they're tied 1-1 heading into the last ODI, the decider, that's going to be played on 17th of September. So there's a lot to look forward to there. Before this, of course, there were 2 T20Is, which were both held at Southampton. Having won the first game comfortably, England also clinched the second game, where they managed to restrict Australia to 157. In spite of some good knocks by Aaron Finch and Marcus Stoinis and Glenn Maxwell, Australia could only make 157 of the 20 overs, and then England chased this down thanks to some solid hitting by Jos Buttler, who started off the chase very energetically, but then stayed till the end with an unbeaten 77, and then David Malan, who made 42. There was a bit of a collapse, but Moeen Ali made sure he batted with Jos Buttler and took England home. So this was a very easy victory for England. So they took the T20I series 2-0. The third game of the series was again held in Southampton, but in this case, England batting first were without Jos Buttler, who took off for some personal reasons, and Eoin Morgan, who was injured in the second T20I. Therefore, they sort of stumbled their way to 145 for 6 in 20 overs, with Jory Bairstow making 55 and Malan making 21, and then some reasonable contributions from captain of the day Moeen, who made 23, and Joe Denley was playing his first limited overs international of the summer. He made 29. But then, all the Australian bowlers were among the wickets, and this was not going to be a very tough chase for Australia. Matthew Wade had been pitched into the 11, and he opened along with Aaron Finch, and they gave them a solid start, and Finch continued his good form, making 39, and Marcus Stoinis 26. And in the end, Mitchell Marsh, who made 39, and Ashton Agar, who made 16, finished off the chase comfortably off the last over. So, Australia had a consolation win. Adil Rashid had a good game. He took 3 for 21 off his 4 overs, and then Tom Curran took 1 for 23 off his 4 overs as well. But the rest of the England bowling lineup, the faster bowlers, that is Archer and Wood, were very, very costly. This completes the list of, let's say, the international games that were played in this duration. If you were to take a quick look at the finals and the semi-finals of the Caribbean Premier League that took place. So the 2 semi-finals were sort of one-sided. So in the first game, St. Lucia Zouks comfortably beat Guyana Amazon Warriors, and then the TKR, the Trinbago Knight Riders juggernaut that just kept rolling on and on, comfortably reached the final as well. And in the final, it was again surprisingly a one-sided game. So in the final, even though the St. Lucia Zouks started off very strongly, they could not capitalize on that, and they sort of subsided to just 154 all out in the 20th over. So at one stage, you can imagine they were 115 for 3, but from that point in time, they suffered a mini collapse thanks to Pollard, who took 4 for 30, and then Fawad Ahmed, who took 2 for 22, and Ali Khan, who took 2 for 25. Remember this name, Ali Khan? We're going to get to him again later in this podcast. In the chase, it looked like Landell Simmons had saved his best, along with Darren Bravo for the finals. Even though there was a bit of a wobble right at the top, they were 19 for 2 in the chase, and the chase could have gone either way, but Landell Simmons finished strongly, scoring 84 of just 49 balls, and Darren Bravo supported him well, scoring 58 of just 47 balls. In the course of this partnership, the two of them hit 10 sixes, leaving no doubt as to who was the winner of this tournament, and Trinbago Knight Riders finished comfortably as the best team of the Caribbean Premier League 2020 and lifted the trophy. There was not a lot to write home about when it came to the bowling of St. Lucia Zouks, and the wrist spinners were hit all over the park, and so were their finger spinners. So these were all the, let's say, the games that were played in this period. If you were to look at some of the off-field news now, let's take a quick look at some of the off-field news that are related to COVID-19. So a Bob Willis Trophy match where Northamptonshire player tested positive for COVID-19 had to be abandoned. So this game was going to be held between Gloucestershire and Northamptonshire, but because there was a player who was actually a non-playing member of the Northamptonshire squad, he tested positive, and therefore they decided to abandon the game. So this is one of the first, let's say, affected games where a game had to be abandoned after it was started. I think we're going to see more of this as the season goes on, but let's really hope it remains to as less as possible so that cricket continues without too many interruptions from COVID. Similarly, we hear that Bangladesh opener Saif Hasan has tested positive for COVID-19 and is currently undergoing home quarantine. Let's hope he recovers soon because they have Bangladesh team have a scheduled 3 test series coming up against Sri Lanka at the end of September, so he'll want to be a part of that squad. Going ahead, the IPL 2020 is also hit by COVID-19 because Delhi Capitals assistant physio has tested positive COVID-19, and it looks like in spite of 2 negative tests, the third one has returned positive, and therefore he's been put under quarantine, and the bubble has the safety bubble has again had to be sort of resealed after he's been pulled out of it. So let's hope this doesn't spread to other players and support staff among other teams as well. IPL is able to go ahead. We know IPL starts, the showcase event of Indian cricket, it starts at the end of next week from 19th September, so we're really hoping that it gets off to a very comfortable start. Among other COVID-19 news, it looks like BCCI has decided to postpone its AGM indefinitely. So this AGM was supposed to be held at the end of September, but it looks like they have decided to hold it sometime in the next 3-month period or so. So we remember the previous AGM was taking place on the 1st of December 2019, or had taken place, and this one was when the new, let's say, the change in regime took over. So but now it remains to be seen when the next AGM will be held and whether we're still awaiting the a report about the roles of this current let's say the regime and whether they'll be replaced and so on. So there's a bit of follow-up to go here, and let's see how this news develops. When we look at some of the other news from outside the cricketing field, so the South African Olympics Association, which is, let's say, the de facto body that controls sport in South Africa, and this is under the aegis of the South African government, has decided to summarily remove the CSA cricket board, the Cricket South Africa board. So it has demanded that all the C-star officers, that is the chief officers of this board, are suspended. The board itself has been suspended as well as CSA has been suspended, and the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee will now be taking over the administration of sport in the country. But since this is an organization run by the South African government, it looks like this might not sit very well with the ICC management. It remains to be seen whether because of this there may be some ramifications on South African cricket as far as international status goes, but we really hope this goes through without a hitch. In other news, Ali Khan, it has just come to our notice that Ali Khan is going to be the first cricketer from USA to actually get a chance to represent USA in IPL. So Ali Khan has been named as the replacement for Harry Gurney, who was injured and ruled out of this year's IPL from KKR perspective. So he's going to play the IPL. So congratulations to Ali Khan, and we hope he can go on to greater things and make a name for himself in the IPL 2020 season. Moving on, if you were to take a look at some of the the news from the perspective of Bob Willis Trophy. So the finalists of the Bob Willis Trophy has been decided. So the Bob Willis Trophy finalists are Somerset and Essex, and in the game that's going to be held later this week, we're going to know who's going to win the first class championship in England. Among other news, so we had already hinted at this previously, Ian Bell has chosen to retire from all forms of cricket at the end of the ongoing English county first class season. So we wish Ian Bell all the best with the upcoming, let's say, cricketing and other, let's say, roles he may challenge himself with. So we are all going to miss the classy Ian Bell. We all remember his game, but we really hope he does equally well in the second half of his career as well as life. So all the best to Ian Bell. In another news, where we know that Yuvraj Singh, we knew that he was probably going to come back. He was going to come out of retirement because he's been requested as such by the Punjab Cricket Association. So owing to this request, Yuvraj has decided to come out of retirement, and he's now probably going to contact BCCI, and they're going to work out how this is going to go, because we know Yuvraj had taken a no objection certificate to play in some of the other leagues. So whether this will be rescinded and whether he'll get to represent Punjab again, I think this is going to be a decision that's going to be taken by BCCI. Let's wait and watch on how this comes through. In other slightly disappointing news, Afghanistan's junior coach Noor Mohammad has been banned for 5 years by the Afghanistan Cricket Board because he's admitted to his role in trying to fix a game in the Shpagiza Premier League. This is the T20 league that's been hosted by Afghan Cricket Board. So in a game that took place in 2019, it looks like he'd approached a few players, and this has come to light, and he has admitted to his guilt and has been banned for 5 years by the board. In another similar disappointing news, it looks like two UAE players, Ashfaq Ahmed, who's been suspended since September of last year, 2019, and Amir Hayat have been suspended for a suspected breach in ICC's anti-corruption rules and code. So if you look at what are the things they are actually accused of, it seems really serious, because it looks like they have been accused of not reporting suspected approach, as well as receiving some favors or some sort of monetary or otherwise gift from some third parties who are sort of already under suspicion. So it does not really bode well as far as UAE cricket goes, and we really are hoping that they've gotten to the bottom of this affair, because it really does not bode well for an up and coming cricketing team to have this sort of a reputation. So we really hope this sort of gets cleared out. In other news, we know that Channel 7 has sort of hinted at a possible termination of their deal. So we know that Channel 7 is now covering the Australian cricket summer from the first class and test match cricket perspective, but it looks like there may be some sort of a disagreement between the board as well as the Australian Cricket Board as well as Channel 7's management, and it may mean that there may be some, the deal might be terminated. This is unfortunately very serious news. We really hope this sort of a storm in a teacup and it sort of blows over. It looks like the amount of cricket that had been promised to them is not going to be delivered this year. The cricket board blames it on COVID, but the Channel 7 management thinks that the cricket board could have done a lot more. So how this scenario is going to develop, we're going to keep an eye on it. So let's see what we can find out in the upcoming episodes. In other good news with which we can finish this episode, Jonty Rhodes has taken up the role of Sweden's head coach. So for an international cricketer who will coach an up and coming team like Sweden, this is a very challenging role, I'm sure. But Jonty Rhodes, with all his experience across his playing time with South Africa as well as his coaching stints with different IPL teams and so on, I think he can inject a lot of ideas for the Swedish cricket team, and also sort of maybe in terms of setting up their infrastructure and other things. So this is excellent news, and we wish Jonty Rhodes all the best in his new role. Thanks once again for tuning in and listening to our digest episodes. So we will probably be picking up the longer duration episode shortly, where we are just awaiting the resumption of test cricket. Also maybe once IPL comes in, we are probably going to try and resume our long episode format. So thanks a lot for tuning in and staying with us during this sort of fallow period of cricket. But we really hope you can continue to stay tuned in every week or every episode, and we would love to have you tell us what you think of our content, or maybe any of your thoughts about our episodes. So you can always get in touch with us at Armchair Cricket Pod on Twitter, or armchair.cricket@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us directly. But you could also leave a comment on any of the podcasting apps you use. We have a list of those in our episode notes, so please feel free to leave a comment there. So I wish you a wonderful day, and having said all that, it's a goodbye from me, your host Ajit. Thank you. Bye-bye.
The Armchair Cricket Podcast News Roundup.